The Dark Secrets of Ferdinand VII, America's most depraved king revealed at midnight. In the dead of night, shadows danced across the walls of the crumbling mansion, an unsettling testament to the secrets that festered within. A chill clawed its way up the spine of anyone who dared approach, for this was no ordinary house. It whispered of unspeakable horror and unimaginable power. Blood-stained documents scattered across the floor spoke of Ferdinand VII, a ruler whose depravity echoed through history and into the living graves of a silent town. Locals avoided even mentioning his name, as if doing so would summon a curse upon them. Eyes darted nervously, hushed voices trembled, until one daring soul decided to enter, a choice that would set off a chain of catastrophic events. Within those walls lay strange artifacts, twisted remnants from a time when Ferdinand was at his peak, every item a haunting relic of his madness. They spoke of secret societies known to bind their members to fates worse than death, of rituals conducted under the light of the blood moon, where innocence was sacrificed to fuel ambition. The air was heavy with tension, as if the house itself held its breath, waiting for something or someone to unravel the sinister web enveloping it. As the clock struck 13, an unholy thunder rumbled through the floorboards, sending a shockwave of fear racing through our protagonist's heart. Was it just the storm outside, or the restless spirit of Ferdinand himself, conjuring nightmares to trap the living within his eternal chaos? The wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows, but inside, the atmosphere simmered with an electric awe, pulling the visitor deeper into the mystery. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the attic, old wood splintering under unseen weight. The visitor hesitated, terror gripping their chest. Should they investigate or flee this cursed place? Curiosity and dread battled within, the promise of forbidden knowledge nearly overwhelming as they took hesitant steps toward the stairs. Each creak underfoot sounded like a voice of warning, urging them to turn back. Yet, something deeper, a whisper of destiny, drew them closer to the dark heart of Ferdinand's legacy. What horrors awaited? What truths lay hidden in the shadows? The mansion awaited, ready to reveal what had been locked away for too long. The stairs groaned as the visitor ascended, each step amplifying the anticipation swirling like a storm within. The air thickened with a palpable dread, heavy with the scent of must and despair. A flickering candle, unsteady but defiant, cast flickers of light against the gloomy walls, illuminating a path lined with portraits. These were not merely faces, but ghoulish reminders of Ferdinand's twisted reign. Their eyes seemed to follow, filling the visitor with an icy grip of paranoia. A low growl echoed from above, a sound so primal, it sent shivers cascading down their spine. Was it a creature of darkness suspended in the attic, or the anguished remnants of a soul lost to Ferdinand's madness? Heart pounding, the visitor hesitated again at the doorway of the attic, the threshold to a realm forgotten by time, yet never forgotten by the torment that lingered like the scent of decay. With one deep breath that felt like a plunge into ice water, they pushed the creaky door open. Dust motes danced in the scant light, suspended in a silence that roared. There, scattered across the floor, was evidence of a life filled with depravity. Faded journals with scrawled recounts of midnight ceremonies, rough drawings showing grotesque figures engaged in unspeakable acts, and mishmashes of symbols that made the very air crackle with malevolence. Suddenly, a cold wind sliced through the room, sending shadows spiraling wildly. The candle flickered and sputtered, teasing at an impending darkness, as if the mansion itself was alive and breathing. A floorboard creaked ominously behind the visitor, and the uneasiness burrowed deep into their gut. They spun around, knuckles whitening against the frame of the doorway. Panic surged, thick and electric, but there was no escape now. The shadows thickened, coiling around them, a tangible manifestation of all the terror that this place had seen, and from within the folds of darkness emerged a fleeting figure not solid but translucent, hovering just above the aged floor. Flickers of recognition passed through it, faces of those who had suffered under Ferdinand's reign, their mouths opening in silent screams. The visitor stumbled back, heart racing, breath quickening. This was more than mere legend. This was a curse unleashed. Who dares disturb the eternal sleep of Ferdinand? A voice hissed, reverberating in the dark, wrapping around the visitor like a vice. It was a voice soaked in rage and grief, the weight of history heavy in its tone. The visitor's mere presence seemed an affront to the very fabric of the mansion's haunted history. Ferdinand the visitor stammered, the name like a jolt of electricity. With a sudden burst of courage, they swung the candle in front of them, illuminating the spectral figure, revealing the crushed horror etched on its face. All the souls trapped within the confines of despair clawed for release, and in that moment, the visitor understood. They held the key. But uncovering the truth might cost them their very soul. What would happen next? Would they break the curse, or succumb to the darkness? As they felt the weight of the estate's legacy pressing heavily upon them, a sound erupted from below, a crash that shook the foundations of the mansion, sending dust raining down like the remnants of forgotten dreams. Terror gripped them once more. The visitors stepped forward, pushed by a force that mingled curiosity and dread. Was there a way to silence the phantoms? To confront the legacy of Ferdinand VIII? The walls trembled, and they stood on the brink of revelation. Could they face what lay ahead? What other dark secrets would the night unveil? The candle flickered violently, casting shadows that twisted like specters across the attic walls. The air was thick with anticipation, electric with the weight of history pressing from all sides. The visitor's breath came fast, each inhale heavy with the knowledge that they brushed against the edge of a terrifying truth, one that might consume them whole. The figure wavered, its ghastly form pulsating in and out of focus, a reflection of all souls imprisoned within these cursed depths. "You seek the truth?" it whispered, voice trembling with centuries of anguish. "You tread where only the brave or the foolish dare venture." Before the visitor could respond, the shriek of the mansion's ancient wood echoed once more. The sound from below surged again, a more forceful crash now, reverberating through the walls like a warning. It was a call to action, or perhaps a push toward their doom. Without thinking, they nodded, gripping the candle tighter. "Yes, I must know. Who are you?" As if responding to the question, the specter grew stable, coalescing into the bedraggled figure of a once fine lady, eyes shimmering with despair. "I was Isabella, a captive of Ferdinand's whims, one of many. It was his thirst for power and chaos that bred my suffering and the suffering of countless souls trapped here." Isabella's eyes locked onto the visitor's, filled with pleading desperation. He unleashed horrors upon the world, twisted rituals buried within these walls. "But you are different. You can do what we could not." End his madness. The visitor's heart pounded. They were a mere stranger, unprepared for the burden of salvation. "But how? What can I do?" "Retrieve the forbidden tome," Isabella urged, gesturing with a translucent hand toward a corner shrouded in darkness. "It is the key to his power, the source of his curse. Without it, you are merely a candle flickering in the void, doomed to join us." As those words sank in, the mansion trembled again, a low rumble beginning from the depths, resonating with a fierce anger. The flicker of the candle seemed a fragile hope against the encroaching darkness. "I will find it," the visitor vowed, steadied by a surprising sense of resolve. But before they could step away, another crash erupted from below, filling the air with the stench of rotting wood. A shadow moved in the corner of the attic, shifting uneasily, revealing itself to be a monstrous shape, larger and more malevolent than anything the visitor had encountered thus far. Eyes that glowed with a hungry light locked onto them, twisting and thrashing like an angry tidal wave of despair and rage. "Isabella, what is that?" the visitor cried, adrenaline kicking like a drumbeat in their chest. "Ferdinand's guardian," she cried, fading as shadows closed in on her. "You must hurry." With a lurch of terror, the visitor sprinted toward the dark corner, where Isabella had gestured, heart pounding like a war drum. They released their grip on the candle for just a moment, stumbling into the damp corner that seemed to absorb the light. Their hands flitted across the dusty remains looking for anything that could draw them closer to the truth, but held their breath against the encroaching beast. The shadows shifted, hungry for flesh, while something icy gripped their heart. With a sudden snap, the visitor uncovered an ancient chest, rusted lock clinging desperately to secrets long buried. Could they open it before the past engulfed them? With the guardian looming closer, it felt as if time itself had stopped, the weight of destiny hanging in the air. Would the tome be the salvation they sought or the weapon that would awaken Ferdinand's wrath? The metal lock felt cool against their trembling fingers. Sweat beaded on the visitor's brow as the shadow loomed closer, ready to pounce, its monstrous visage distorting in the flickering light. They sank to their knees, frantically searching for the right leverage on the aged chest. Time raced dangerously ahead, each breath tasting of fear and desperation. The guardian's growl echoed like thunder, shaking the attic floor beneath them. The visitor's heart hammered against their ribcage, a wild stallion desperate to escape a cage. Each moment stretched like a lifetime. "Please," they whispered, their voice barely a breath, as panic clawed at their throat. "Help me find the tome." With trembling hands, they twisted the keyhole, fighting against rust that resisted their desperate attempts. The sound of the guardian's approach, a rasping breath intermingled with the creak of the house, sent a chill down their spine. Fear clutched at them, a powerful anchor threatening to pull them under. Finally, the lock turned. A satisfying click rang out, but it barely drowned out the monstrous howls that filled the air. They shot open the chest, a rush of stale, fetid air gushed out, wrapping around them like icy fingers. There it lay, nestled on a bed of frayed silk, a leather-bound tome, black as the void itself. The visitor could feel its weight, not just in grams, but in significance, as if the destinies of countless souls rested within those pages. As they reached for it, the guardian's grotesque arm shot forward, claw-like fingers threatening to snatch them back into darkness. The visitor snatched the tome and, with a swift motion, slammed the chest shut. A silence fell, so thick it pressed against their ears, only to be shattered by rageful shouts from below. "Ferdinand knows. Your defiance won't go unpunished." Heart racing, the visitor bolted upright, gripping the tome as if it were a lifeline. The candle flickered wildly now, propelled by a breath of wind that hadn't been there before. Shadows lashed out, swirling violently, and a voice echoed in their mind. "Unravel the pages, but beware what you uncover." They needed to escape the attic, to find safety, but the guardian was closing in, its eyes glimmering like twin stars in an endless night. They dashed across the attic, searching for an exit, the tome heavy in their arms. Each footfall felt like a hammer striking against the ancient floor. A sudden scream pierced the silence. Not from the guardian, but from just below. Isabella's tortured cries echoed through the walls, entwining with the echoes of the past. "You can't hide forever. Knowledge is a burden," she cried, her voice tinged with a warning. "Embrace the darkness, and it will claim you." The visitor hesitated, torn between the surge of curiosity to open the tome and the dread weaving itself into their very being. Was knowledge truly worth this price? Yet the pull was undeniable, the flicker of truth coursing through their veins. The shadows lunged. With a swift movement, they thrust the book into their satchel, clumsily clasping it shut. There had to be a way down, a stairway leading to freedom. They raced toward the far end of the attic, hoping for an escape route. Suddenly, the world around them shifted, the walls bending as if breathing. Was it the mansion itself reacting to their disruption? The visitors stumbled, the darkness fighting back, but a beam of moonlight pierced through the gloom, illuminating a narrow stairway spiraling down. The guardian lunged, its raw power crashing against the walls, yet the visitor was already running forward, hard in their throat. Each step echoed like a countdown. Each thump against the wood was a challenge. Could they escape, or was Ferdinand's wrath already upon them? In a burst of speed, they dove down the steps, the sinister presence hot on their heels. The tome clutched tightly as they slipped into the unknown below. What awaited them in the depths of the mansion? Would they discover answers, or become another lost soul within its dark embrace? The steps spiraled downward, each echo a call to arms against the encroaching darkness. The visitor felt the walls swell and pulse around them, alive with the breath of the mansion. Panic coursed through their veins as the growls from above twisted into a cacophony of anger and dread, urging them to run faster, to escape the nightmare that clung to their heels. Rushing past shadows that tangled and whispered in the corners, they reached the bottom. The space opened up into a dimly lit corridor, thick with dust as if untouched for decades. Flickering light from wall sconces cast eerie shapes that danced like phantoms, taunting them with twisted grins. Breathing hard, they pressed forward, keeping the tome close, its weight a constant reminder of the secrets it held. The corridors twisted and turned. Each corner felt like a new gamble. Where was the way out? And what awaited them at the end of this haunted maze? Isabella's voice echoed in the back of their mind. Knowledge is a burden. She had warned them, yet all they could think about was the power that could be contained within those pages. The need for answers clawed at them, a magnetic lure that threatened to drag them back into the depths. The light ahead grew brighter, a glow that suggested hope or perhaps another trap. They approached cautiously, each step tinged with adrenaline. What now? As they reached the doorway, they paused, heart pounding like a drum in the still air. The room beyond was vast, its ceiling lost in shadow. But what struck them was the sight of a grand table in the center, covered in scrolls, dust, and the scattered remains of ancient artifacts. On the far wall hung portraits of men and women, their eyes glimmering with an unsettling life, following every movement. Among them, one figure stood out, draped in royal attire, his expression devoid of warmth. Ferdinand VII, an ominous reminder of the terror that shadowed their quest. Suddenly, a crash reverberated from the hallway behind them. The guardian had breached the door. With fear surging in, they spun back to the room, searching for protection. A wooden cabinet loomed precariously, filled with smaller tomes and jars filled with old, brittle parchment. Would they hide? Or confront this menacing figure? Before they could decide, the guardian loomed into view, its eyes piercing through the dim light, its growls vibrating the floor. You cannot escape. The depths of knowledge are not meant for your kind. The visitor's throat went dry. They could feel dread pooling in their stomach, mixing with uncertainty. What was it Ferdinand wanted? Why were they seeking this knowledge? It all began to feel like a web tightening around them. The power of the tome surged, urging them to act. Grabbing a scroll from the table, they called out, "I don't need to escape. I want to know." The words left their lips almost before they could think, but a single thought flashed through their mind. Could this be the key to saving not just themselves, but possibly others caught in Ferdinand's grip? As the guardian paused, confusion flickering in its monstrous gaze, the shadows shifted again around them. Something was happening. The tome began to hum, resonating with energy that coursed through the air, vibrant and alive. The atmosphere crackled, electrified by the weight of knowledge and the promise of truth. With a surge of courage, the visitors scanned the scroll. If they could decipher it, would they unleash the power to confront Ferdinand? Just then, the guardian lunged forward, fury erupting. The world around them began to swirl, clashing with vibrant colors and deafening sounds. They braced for impact, the tome and the scroll almost igniting in their hands. Would the knowledge they sought transform this encounter into an attack against the guardian? Or would it spell their doom, pulling them further into the abyss? The answer waited just a heartbeat away, teetering on the edge of discovery or destruction. What revelation awaited them on the brink of knowledge's embrace? And would they have the strength to wield it against Ferdinand's relentless rule? The scroll flickered in their hands, words shimmering and shifting like heat on pavement. The visitor's heart raced, pulse thrumming in sync with the tome's energy. With the guardian inches away, they felt the weight of reality pressed down like a lead blanket. This was the moment, the act of desperation that could either save them or seal their fate. Just a little longer, they whispered, focusing on the ancient script. Energy crackled in the air, tendrils of light wrapping around their fingers. What the words promised was greater than knowledge. It was power. They had to decipher it. They had to understand. Just as a low growl vibrated from the guardian's chest, the visitor found a pattern among the symbols. Decoding the language felt like unlocking a door long sealed. every word lifted off the scroll, each syllable igniting a fire within. Through wisdom, all may rise; through darkness, the truth shall break. They murmured, each phrase pulling them deeper into the abyss and elevating their spirit, but reality was fraying. The guardian surged, teeth bared, the strength of its anger vibrating through the room. Shadows twisted and rolled like storm clouds. The portraits on the walls seemed to shift, their eyes now intent on them. Maria, the scholar who lost her mind searching for knowledge, flickered in their memory, a cautionary tale that echoed in the visitor's thoughts. Before they could comprehend the consequences, the scroll erupted into a blinding light, illuminating everything. The guardian shielded its eyes, a howl escaping its lips. A burst of power surged through the visitor, an electric current that threatened to tear them to shreds. They threw their hands out before them, as if the very act of reaching could control the chaos. The light expanded, illuminating the entire chamber, amplifying the energy around them. The dust particles danced in the air like fireflies caught in a tempest. For a split second, the silken whispers of the past were drowned out by an overwhelming roar, and then silence. The guardian staggered back, confusion and fear washing over its face. The visitor gasped, realizing they had momentarily seized its power, disrupted the very nature of the creature. The weight of the tome felt like an anchor, dragging them as they balanced on the precipice of fear and exhilaration. "I can wield this," they mumbled, surprise dawning with fierce clarity. "Knowledge isn't a burden, it's a weapon." With a newfound resolve, they directed their thoughts towards the guardian. Channeling the scroll's energy, the air thickened with anticipation. The guardian's fury boomed again, but the shadows shrank back, as if their coercion could not withstand the force assembled before them. For every step the guardian took forward, a pulse of power sent it stumbling back. But while the visitor focused on the guardian, they noticed movement from the far wall. Ferdinand's portrait flickered, shifting like a living painting, his eyes glinting with a hunger for what was happening. It wasn't just the guardian they were fighting. A darker force stirred behind the frame. Ferdinand was aware. He was still here, lurking, watching, waiting for an opportunity to reclaim what he thought was his. That a shiver ran down their spine as dread flooded their thoughts. Would they truly be able to confront not just the guardian, but Ferdinand himself? Their hands shook, not just from fear, but from the gripping realization of the stakes. Then the light around them twisted wildly, the colors flaming in a chaotic dance as the guardian lunged again, rage coursing through its muscles. Would the visitor's newly found power be enough? Or would it spiral out of control, leading them into a trap of unimaginable horror? The ancient whispers called once more. The answer lay trapped within the scroll, and just inches away, Ferdinand's presence loomed ever larger. Would they decipher his dark secret before it was too late? The guardian leapt, a mass of sinewy muscle and fury. But the visitor, fueled by desperation and the pulsing energy of the scroll, held their ground. "No," they shouted, voice trembling yet resolute. They raised their hands, the light flaring at their fingertips, forming a barrier that shimmered between them and the guardian. The creature's claws raked through the air, inches from their face, and for a fleeting moment, the visitor thought they could see the shadows in its eyes flicker with uncertainty. It hesitated, and in that very instant, a wave of confidence washed over the visitor. They had dared to challenge fate, and perhaps, just perhaps, they could sway the outcome. "Ferdinand!" they yelled, summoning the name like a spell. "I know you're there." The air shifted. For a heartbeat, the portrait stilled. Ferdinand's eyes, once partially obscured by time and grime, now seemed to bore into their very soul. A slow, almost sinister smile crept across his painted lips, unsettling the visitor. The sensation was like ice water plunging into their veins. They could feel the impending revelation wrapping around them, suffocating yet intoxicating. "I've been waiting for this moment," Ferdinand purred, his voice a disembodied echo that seemed to circle the room. "Did you think you could pull power from me unscathed? You wield the scroll, true, but at what cost? Knowledge is a curse." A wave of unease rippled through the chamber as the shadows inched closer, swirling like a sinister fog. The guardian roared and charged the barrier, forcing the visitor to strain against the onslaught. The brilliance of their light began to dim as doubt crept into their mind. Was this all a trap? But then, The scroll pulsed under their hands. It felt alive, a heartbeat synchronized with their own racing pulse. "I have the power," they cried, rediscovering that glimmer of certainty. "You are just a figment of this place, a faded echo of your sins." The air crackled as Ferdinand's form flickered, caught between realms. "Sins can't be washed away, child. They are chains that bind you to the past." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And you're on the brink of a legacy far more sinister than mine." A chill enveloped the visitor, suffocating, wrapping tightly around their throat. Memories of those who came before them, the scholars gone mad, the tortured souls trapped in portraits flooded their thoughts. They looked back at the Guardian, drawing courage from its volatile power. The air seemed to shudder with Ferdinand's laughter, cruel and haunting. "You will yield, or you will fall like the others." "No." The visitor pushed out with determination. "I choose my path. This ends now." With every ounce of strength, they channeled the energy from the scroll, pouring it forth as radiant light that surged forward, pooling against the Guardian and the dark presence behind Ferdinand's frame. The shadows recoiled, hissing and screeching, but the visitor's focus was unwavering. They felt the pulse of knowledge, of secrets unraveling like threads pulled from a tapestry. The chamber erupted into color, and for every pulse of power, Ferdinand's form wavered, unraveling the darkness he represented. But in that final moment, the walls creaked ominously, and a horrifying sound rumbled from the foundation. The lights flickered, heartbeat-like, as cracks spider-webbed across the chamber. Beneath the layer of power fueling the visitor, an ancient malevolent force stirred, rising from the depths of the past, putting everything at risk. "Don't relent," a voice screamed inside them. Yet the familiar sensation of dread crept closer. It was not just Ferdinand's shadow they faced. It was something more profound, more insidious. Even as brilliance enveloped them, a darkness lurked, clawing at their resolve. With each second ticking like a countdown, the visitor had to decide, would they explore Ferdinand's secrets or turn back before embracing the darkness. The light dimmed, and for a heartbeat, it felt like they were losing control. What depths lay hidden behind those ancient walls? And could they withstand whatever emerged? The air vibrated with tension as the visitor clung to their last threads of light. Shadows writhed against the walls, undulating like serpents, eager to consume their very essence. Each pulse of power that surged from the scroll felt weaker, as if the ancient darkness below was a yawning chasm threatening to swallow them whole. "Focus," they commanded themselves, fighting against the encroaching panic. "You have to hold on." But Ferdinand's mocking laughter echoed like a haunting specter. "Do you really think you can resist what lies beneath? Power does not come without a price, and what you're about to unleash, it's beyond comprehension." The ground quaked beneath them, each tremor knocking the visitor off balance. The Guardian roared again, its muscles tense and coiled, readying for another attack. Just as they braced for impact, a bolt of light shot from the scroll, colliding with the Guardian's thick hide. It staggered back, momentarily dazed, and the visitor seized that fleeting moment of reprieve. "Come on, fight," they urged the Guardian, pushing their will into the creature. The light flickered in response, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the heartbeat of the ancient space around them. "We both want the same thing." Ferdinand's sinister form flickered once more, flicking from confident menace to fleeting uncertainty. "You think yourself the hero of this tale," he began, his tone dripping with condescension. "But be warned, child, you are a pawn in a game far older than any king." A shudder ran through the stone walls, and the visitor felt a coolness seep into their bones, chilling their resolve. With every second, the darkness beneath clawed upwards, its tendrils twisting into the air, shimmering with malevolent allure. The power of the scroll flickered again, demanding more of them. But would it be enough to hold back the horrific force bubbling below? Ferdinand and his darkness are linked, they realized, scrambling to regain control. If I can sever that connection, drawing a deep, shuddering breath, the visitor directed the brilliance upwards, a focused beam arcing toward Ferdinand. "You're not a king. You're a chained wretch of the past." The light surged forward, intensifying, growing brighter as it collided with Ferdinand. The figure let out a screech that echoed through the chamber, a harsh symphony of agony and fury as his form began to morph, distorting under the weight of the light. The shadows recoiled, and for a moment, illuminating the grotesque nature of Ferdinand's twisted face, revealing the horrors beneath. Cursed blood runs through your veins. Ferdinand spat, his visage flickering like a dying flame. What you unleash will condemn you to my fate. But the visitor felt a spark of truth ignite within them. They embraced the scroll's energy, and the walls trembled in response. It was not simply the dark past that they faced. With every ounce of strength, they connected with the Guardian, intertwining their fates. The ancient malevolent force hadn't just been an echo of past kings, it was a warning, pushing them toward revelation. Yet just as the fissures widened and the darkness thrashed wildly, a captivating vision unfurled before them. A fleeting glimpse of countless souls, stories woven through time, all tangled within the web of Ferdinand's curse. What if they could harness not just the light, but the collective anguish, unraveling the ties that bonded all those lost in this tragic tale? The Guardian at their side roared with renewed vigor as the visitor armed themselves with the anguish and hopes of those silenced. They had to descend into the darkness to extract the truth, understanding that only by confronting this nightmare could they hope to reshape the future. Now, they urged the Guardian, and together they leapt into the fray of shadows, light cutting through the blackness, pushing into the depths where Ferdinand's forsaken legacy lingered. But as they plunged deeper into the abyss, ominous whispers beckoned from the darkness. Could they truly withstand the depths of despair, or would they too be lost? Among the shadows descending into madness, what awaited them in the abyss below? And would the price of knowledge be more than they ever imagined? The descent felt endless, a spiraling fall into a void saturated with anguish. The abyss embraced them, the overwhelming darkness shifting like the tide, pounding against the walls of their mind. The scroll pulsed in their grasp, a lifeline flickering in the encroaching night, urging them to hold tight. They weren't alone. The Guardian surged beside them, a breathtaking silhouette against the dark. Its eyes glimmered, alive with a fierce fire that matched the determination rising within the visitor. Together, they forged ahead, the light from the scroll slicing through the black like a knife through fog. What lies at the bottom? They whispered, the question echoing in the chamber like a promise and a threat. Each heartbeat pounded with urgency, merging with the harmonized growl of the Guardian. Was it fear or resolve? Maybe both. Suddenly, the shadows thickened. The once faint whispers morphed into menacing howls, shrilling through the empty space, filled with despair. Ferdinand's hunger reaches far beyond this plane. They cried out, trying to drown out the encroaching tide of terror. It feeds on doubt, on the memories of those who came before us. The Guardian's growl turned into a defiant roar, shaking the very core of their shared existence. They instinctively pressed closer, feeding off each other's strength. Maintaining focus, they swept the light around, forging a protective barrier against the onslaught of darkness. But it didn't quell the terror clawing at the edges of their consciousness. And then they saw a flicker of something below. A horrific swell of shadows coalesced, forming grotesque figures of tortured souls, trapped in their torment. Faces blurred, expressions of agony frozen forever in time. They were the remnants of those caught in Ferdinand's curse, echoing wails vibrating through the chamber, striking against their hearts. Brick by brick, they rebuilt the lost histories of pain, a tapestry of suffering laid bare. Oh God, the visitor gasped. What if we're too late? The light from the scroll quivered, flickering like a candle caught in a wind. They could feel the pull of despair tugging at them, the seductive allure of surrender. It would be so easy to give in, to let the darkness envelope them. Yet they fought against that pull, refusing to yield. No, not today. With a readying breath, they hurled the light deeper into the shadows. Listen to me, they shouted, channeling their will into the beam. You are not forgotten. You carry the truth. The light expanded, twisting and turning, becoming a net meant to catch the souls desperate for release. And in that moment, something shifted. The spirits stirred, responding to the light drawing close, flickering like dying stars reigniting with hope. The air buzzed with energy as the Guardians stood firm against the roiling shadows. Together, they formed a bond that transcended the darkness, igniting memories that had long been buried, Suddenly, a towering figure loomed from the darkness, a dreadful silhouette emerging. Ferdinand. His eyes gleamed with rage, the smirk returning, but now twisted with madness. "You think this light can save you?" he rasped, voice booming through the chasm, each word sharp enough to cut. "You will only unleash greater horrors." "No," the visitor shouted over him. "You can't control this. We're forging a way forward." Yet Ferdinand lunged, shadows coiling around him like serpents. His laughter echoed deep and chilling, slicing through the momentary confidence like a knife. They were straddling a precipice of reckoning now, the defining moment where knowledge met power. The scroll surged once more, but would it be enough? A blinding flash erupted, momentarily blinding them. When their vision cleared, the chasm was shifting, shadows writhing with an urgency that promised calamity. Like a torrent unleashed, chaos erupted as Ferdinand's forces rallied against them, unwilling to yield. Unwilling to be forgotten. Was it folly to stir the spirits of the past? Or had they truly unleashed something uncontrollable? As the final battle loomed close, the visitor faced the swirling chaos. Would they stand together against the tempest, or would they succumb to the rapture of despair that awaited? The answer hung in the balance, and the abyss whispered their fate. The shadows writhed in dark frenzy, desperate to swallow the light as the visitor clutched the scroll, but there was no surrender in their heart. Together with the guardian, they steadied themselves, harnessing the power of shared dreams, and their voices blended into a defiant roar against the chilling presence of Ferdinand. "You don't own us," they shouted, the words bursting forth fueled by righteous fury. The ancient curse, vast as the ocean, felt the weight of their resolve. The air crackled, swirling with a tempest of tension, as the luminous energy from the scroll pulsated brighter with each word of truth that resonated in the chamber. Ferdinand's eyes narrowed, anger bubbling within the depths of his soul. "You think mere light can extinguish my dark legacy? You are but a fleeting spark against the eternal night." The shadows quivered, swirling around him like a storm, attempting to drown out their rising power. But the visitor would not relent. Not now. They began to recite an incantation, deciphering the ancient script from the scroll aloud, letting the words flow through them like an invigorating river. "Through pain, we rise. Through despair, we claim our truth." Each phrase held the weight of a destiny long bound, igniting something within the collective consciousness of the tortured souls anchored in the shadows. The world around them warped, Ferdinand's laughter echoing through the chasm. Yet now there was hesitation in his stance, uncertainty creeping into his fury. The guardian surged forward, a force of nature, and with the light blazing brightly, electricity danced between them. "Together, we can end this," it roared, unleashing the raw, magnetic energy against Ferdinand's darkness. The echo of long-lost souls reverberated in the air. The visitor caught movement in their periphery, the spirits who had suffered infused with renewed vigor, rising to meld with their strength. "Release us," they cried out, each word a thread woven deep into the fabric of historical pain. Suddenly, the air transformed into a whirlwind of light and shadow, dissonant yet harmonizing, pushing back against the malignant murk that Ferdinand commanded. "In this unity lies true power," the visitor gasped, thrusting their hands outward, channeling every ounce of fierce bravery. "You will not take our light." And there it was, the first crack in the stronghold of tears Ferdinand had built. The shadows abetted, scrambling like insects caught in the sun. For the first time, fear glimmered in Ferdinand's eyes as he took a step back, losing ground against the tide of energy billowing from the visitor. "Yes," they yelled, their heart racing. "Feel the light." With a final push, they unleashed every whisper, every scream of anguish, every ounce of hope from those lost souls. The room erupted in a blaze of illuminating clarity. A spiraling vortex of light poured around them, bright against the cacophony of darkness. Ferdinand's form flickered wildly, the shadows retreating from sheer intensity. "You think you can wield this?" His voice lost its bravado, unraveling. "Without the darkness, you won't know how to survive. You cannot escape the past." The mansion trembled, and deep cracks radiated along its walls as the visitor, fighting against dread, shouted back, "No. We honor the past by breaking its chains." And just like that, the connection severed. The air pulsed a blinding hue, vibrating fiercely as Ferdinand shrieked, a sound that rattled the very foundations. The darkness twisted, howling back, before dissolving into glittering fragments that scattered like fallen leaves. Ferdinand's figure was drawn into a vortex that spiraled toward obliteration, engulfed by the very shadows he'd commanded. The visitor faltered, breathless under the weight of victory, yet keenly aware of the heavy silence that followed as echoes faded. Reality held its breath, so still it felt almost sacred. And then the guardian turned, its eyes glistening with gratitude and something undeniably human. Strength flourished between them, built from shared pain, channeling release and renewal. The swirls of energy around the visitor pulsed and drifted, enveloping them like soft embraces. "We did it," the visitor breathed, letting the scroll slip gently from their grasp, landing quietly at their feet, having fulfilled its purpose. Isabella's spirit cooled in the air beside them, radiant and peaceful. "You have freed us," she whispered, her voice like a gentle breeze. "You are the one who could face the darkness and live to tell the tale. Now the mansion this torment shall crumble, and with it, the curse." The walls shivered, relinquishing their grasp on despair. Light flooded the hallways, warmth washing over each corner that once bore witness to evil. But the visitor understood. The shadows had not so easily disappeared. They would remain in the minds of those who remembered, as echoes of history, but no longer veiled in animosity. With renewed strength, they trudged forward into the light-filled corridor, hand in hand with the guardian of their fate, a bond immortalized. Freedom was theirs, and the mansion groaned as it began to fade away. The past relinquished to the memories and stories now woven into understanding. As they stepped out into the vibrant world outside, the sun glimmered brilliantly in the sky, and a new dawn painted the horizon. With each heartbeat, they felt the weight lift, a tearful smile cracking their lips. Together, they turned to face the challenge of life ahead. "We'll tell their stories," the visitor promised. "We'll keep their spirits alive." And with that, they walked on, embracing the journey of revelations yet to unfold. This was not just an ending. It was a new beginning. Don't you dare miss another story like this. You need to subscribe now to our channel and hit that button to stay in the loop. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now so your reaction can fuel the algorithm. And please, flood the comments section, share your theories, your thoughts, or just how this ending made you feel. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel. So be sure to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your voice matters here.